Welcome to another episode of Shift with Elena God. In this conversation, I'm very excited to chat with Andy Storch. He's a career development expert and author of two books. One is called Own Your Career, Own Your Life, and the second one is Own Your Brand, Own Your Career. And both are absolute gems to read. And you know what else is a gem? This episode, because it is packed with full on, really practical strategies of how to stand out in a crowd, how to own your career. What does personal brand have to do with all this? And how do you actually practically apply this to your own career? I'm a huge fan of Andy. It's been a long time coming to record this episode. I'm so excited that we finally did it. I bought both of his books. They're brilliant. I could read them over and over again, and I highly recommend you check those out as of course, this episode. As always, please share, subscribe, and come back for more. Thank you. Andy, welcome to the Shift Podcast.
Elena, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
What an honor and a privilege, really. I recently got your books, and I'm always excited to talk to people after I actually read their books because I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. Because it's such an experience for me as a host. So for people who are listening, your first book was the Own Your Career, Own Your Life, which is also in your back. I love it over there on the wall. And
Yep.
it's just absurd. And then the latest one is Own Your Brand, Own Your Career that you also wrote with Mike Kim. So excellent books. We're going to dive into those because I think being in this career development space and being so passionate, and my audience is sick of me at this point, but I'm like, everybody needs to own their career. They need to own their career and they need to focus on personal branding and so on.
Right.
So I can't wait to learn more about everything, or as much as we can cover in this episode. But take me back a little bit, before you start writing these books, give my audience a little bit of a snapshot of who is Andy, how did you come
Yeah.
about being so passionate about these things?
Well, Elena, thank you. And I'm so glad that you are passionate. You talk about these things. I'm sure your audience is not sick of it. That's why they're here. That's why they keep coming back, right, to listen to you and the great guests that you have on. And I'm honored to be here. And this is something that I've been really passionate about for the last 5 years or so since I published the first book. But obviously, I've had a long and sort of meandering career before that. I tried my hand at entrepreneurship a few times early in my career. I got into the insurance industry after that, and I worked in a number of different jobs that were never quite a great fit for me and my skills. And in fact, I had a moment sometime in my late 20s where I was working in an analyst role in an insurance company where I was starting to realize what my strengths are. When you start to really realize like, oh, I'm good at certain things. I'm not as good at certain things. What my strengths don't really fit this job. I wonder if I should be doing something different. And I'm in a large organization. So I went to my manager one day and I asked him, I said, I'm starting to realize that like I'm okay with this analyst stuff, but I'm also really great with people. I like working with people. Could I maybe, we adjust my job and I spend more time in the field working with agents or something like that? Again, it was an insurance company. And his response was something to the effect of, no, that's not your job. Get back to work and do the thing that you're supposed to be doing, right? Which is understandable for a lot of managers that are just focused on getting that one job done in that time. And it was demoralizing to me, though, at that time, because I realized, like, okay, this is not going to work for me to pivot into something that fits more of my strengths. But I'm also grateful for him because it also showed me that this is not the place where I need to be. And so I started setting goals to make some moves, reached out to a friend who ended up helping me get a job with a really great consulting firm called BTS, where I really developed a lot of my strengths around facilitation, networking, sales, building relationships, things like that. And I got a chance to travel all over the world facilitating workshops on things like strategy alignment, business acumen, leadership. And I learned a lot about business and what great leadership looked like. And I also observed a lot of people really kind of drifting through their careers, operating in reaction mode, waiting for other people to tell them what to do or where to go. Maybe it was their boss or someone else. And it doesn't mean that they weren't, successful, especially by a lot of conventional measures, maybe moving up the ranks, getting new and different roles, getting more senior titles, but not always being very happy in their life. I noticed that. And I kind of tucked that away. And then a few years later, I started getting really deep into personal development, listening to a lot of podcasts like this one, reading a lot of books, doing a lot of meditation and journaling and self-discovery and thinking about what I wanted to do and where I wanted to maybe go with my career. And as I was figuring that out, I realized that I had kind of put together a framework that could be helpful to other people. Now, for me, I was really drawn towards entrepreneurship. I felt like I needed to be running my own business, and I was trying to figure out how can I build a business around my strengths, things I love doing, like speaking and facilitation, networking, community building, things like that. And I eventually did that, which I'm very proud of. But I also had a lot of conversations with corporate clients, professionals, and realized that entrepreneurship is not for everybody. But what I think everybody does want is to feel happy and fulfilled in their careers. So I took a lot of the lessons that I learned in going through that transformation and learning from so many other people and put them together in a framework that became a keynote, as well as my first book, Own Your Career, Own Your Life, which is all about teaching people to take more ownership, more responsibility in their career, set a vision, make a plan, and then go out and take action to achieve more of what they want in their career and in their life.
Mm. And when I was reading these books, it was a really nice transition because I feel like the own career, own your life is I feel like that's like the base that people need to cover, and I want to get into some of that. And because I was like, well, you can't really build a brand necessarily until you own your career and you know what you
Yeah.
understand the ins and outs. So this was a nice like this the brand book was just like a nice continuation.
Hmm.
And to your point, I think what's interesting is that in this space, I always think about like, okay, maybe at one point we're all just going to be really fulfilled, right? But then it's like every year something happens, and then the
Yeah.
next thing and the next thing. I think like right now this is the right time to have this conversation because of everything. I think a lot of people are going through a shift, right, with
Hmm.
AI, and people just kind of like their whole careers are uplifted and they're not sure what's next for them. So for people who are listening to this, and maybe they find themselves in that situation, right?
Hmm.
Especially I'm thinking like a lot of my audience are probably going to be career change people, if anything.
Hmm.
So like as you're thinking about, listen, I've been doing X for 10 years. Like let's start with that. Like what's the first step for somebody to start owning this new career maybe?
Well, I strongly believe that the foundation, the first step, is all about using self-reflection to build self-awareness. This is the foundation to owning your career. It's the foundation to owning your brand. I think it's the foundation to great leadership as well. Taking time to really get to know yourself and think about where you came from, where you are now, where you maybe want to be going tomorrow. Most people don't take time for this because we're bombarded with requests all the time, emails, social media notifications, text messages, requests from our partner, our kids, our pets, whatever it is. There's all kinds of stuff going on. But taking a little bit of time in a quiet space with a cup of coffee or tea and a notebook and a pen or pencil and just writing down some things like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? What are the things that you love doing, your energizers? What are your values, the things that you really care about? How do you feel about what you're doing in your career today? How did you get to this point? And are you happy with the work that you're doing? And if you're unhappy, what about it are you unhappy about, right? Because oftentimes, if you say, well, I don't really like my current situation, it might not be everything. It might be your boss, it might be your schedule, it might be certain parts of the work that you're doing, or it may be that you need to make a complete change. And then if you do want to make a change, what changes need to be made? If you work in a large organization, there might be excuse me, if you work in a large organization, there might be tons of great opportunities for you to do other things in that company. If you just have a conversation with your manager or someone in HR, if you work for a smaller company or you run your own business, maybe it's time to think about making a pivot. This is again where you want to do some journaling, but you also want to have some conversations with a manager, a mentor, a coach, some trusted friends, family, colleagues, etc., who can also give you some ideas and some feedback because I've seen it so often that we are acutely aware of our weaknesses, right? The things that we're not very good at, but people don't often embrace their strengths because they just think like, oh, if I'm good at something, probably everybody else is good at it. So people around you could be looking at you and saying, Elena, you're really fantastic at storytelling, at synthesizing data, at analyzing information, at podcasting, whatever it may be. You might want to think about doing more of that. And so getting that feedback and those ideas from other people can be really helpful. But it all starts with the reflection and building that self-awareness to really understand yourself and how you truly feel about things. And what are you happy about and not happy about? What are the changes that you might want to make? And then you can start putting together a vision and a plan and some goals for where you want to go from there.
Mm. It's interesting about the self-awareness piece. I actually just recently learned this on another podcast with another awesome guest. His name is Matt Popsell. I can never pronounce his name. Popsell. Matt, I'm sorry if you're listening to this. He wrote a book called Enlightened Leadership, and he talks about two different types of self-awareness. One is the self-awareness of like, your like introspection essentially, and then there's the self-awareness of like, how do other people actually perceive me? So like that external kind of piece of like,
Hmm.
oh, great, right? Because I'm an, maybe this is the pessimist in me, but also maybe because I'm in this space, but I feel like a lot of people are not as self-aware as they can be, I guess. And
Yeah.
I asked
Everyone
I'm like,
thinks they're more self-aware than they are, right?
exactly. And I asked myself, I was like, am I really self-aware? Like I'm always having, I was like, am I really self-aware? Like, am I doing this right?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and I really think, so anyway, so what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm sure self-awareness is like anything else. We can always get better. Most people probably think that they are self-aware, and maybe they are, maybe they're not. It's really a matter of perspective, right?
Yeah.
I think the key and the one thing that I keep coming back to that I think helps me continue to become more self-aware is leading with a lot of curiosity. So being willing to ask people questions and ask for feedback, but also questioning myself all the time. Not questioning myself in that like I doubt myself, but when I have feelings, especially of anger or frustration, but other feelings as well, can I stop and ask myself, why am I feeling this way? When
Mm.
I have maybe I'm dealing with comparison or envy or jealousy towards other people, why am I feeling this way? Is that something that I really want? Do I want to be doing that thing that they're doing, or is it just that I kind of have this tendency to be jealous of others? And let that kind of guide you to think about what's truly important for you in your life. And a lot of times we get upset about things that are really not that big of a deal or don't impact us, right? And this is also connects back to the idea of taking ownership. So I'm big on ownership mindset, which means that you try to spend most of your energy focusing on things that are in your control and less time on things that are out of your control. So there are a lot of things in the world that are not in our control, right? Politics, the world economy, the decisions that your organization is making, usually from top-down leadership, right? Your colleagues, you can't control them. Even your partner, your kids, even your pets, you really can't control them. You can try to influence them, right? But
Hmm.
what you can control is how you respond to events that are going on, right? How you show up, how you treat other people, how you treat yourself, how you spend your time, the things that you decide to work on, the things that you give your attention to. And so I don't want to be spending too much of my time focused on all these things that I can't control when there are all these things that I do have control over. And that ties back to me being willing and able to build more of that awareness that is going to allow me to build more of a career based on my strengths and my energizers, my values, the things that I really want to be doing.
Hmm. And let's say somebody's listening and like, okay, Andy, I've done the work. Okay,
Hmm.
I'm more self-aware than I was yesterday. And I
Yeah.
feel like I'm not in the right place in my career or, and so
Yeah.
on. And and
Yeah.
I'm aware and I want to change. Now what?
Mhm. Yeah. So I mean, one thing I would add too is that self-awareness, I think, is a journey like anything else, right? It's not like you reach one day you wake up and you're like, I've made it. I'm self-aware. It's like we're always learning and growing and getting better. And it's the same with our career. And I totally get that you may be saying like, look, I've done this work and I figured this stuff out and I'm in a career that I don't really like and I feel like it's really hard to change. I don't know what to do. And this is again where the curiosity can be really helpful because you've got to start doing the research to find out what else is out there. You've got to start having conversations with other people. So when in the middle of the first book, I talk about the three things you can always be doing to set yourself up for future success. The first is investing in continuous learning. So, are you learning new skills on a regular basis? This is going to be really helpful. And we're in a time, like you said, where things are changing so fast all the time. There's tons of great new things to learn about, and as a result, there's more opportunities to completely shift in your career as well. Like you could go out and take some courses on AI and go market yourself as an AI expert and probably get a job somewhere in that field when you didn't even know what it was 3 or 4 years ago, right? Which is totally fine. The second thing is building your network, building relationships. And this is so key. So many opportunities, as you know, Elena, in careers and life come from relationships, people we know, and we learn so much from other people as well. So, can you be having more conversations with people both in your inner circle and those kind of people that you just barely know a little bit and people that you don't know at all to find out, hey, what are they working on? If there's a career that you're maybe interested in, but you don't know how to break into it, can you connect with some people who are doing that job and just ask them if you can have a cup of coffee with them or get on Zoom with them for 20 minutes to do a quote informational interview, it's what I call it, to just ask them some questions about what they do, how they got into it, what they like about it, what they don't like about it. And you're just trying to learn as much as you can and make some connections in that space. And there's no guarantees, but if you come across as helpful, kind, you're adding value, you impress the people you're talking to, chances are there's going to be some opportunities that come your way through that as well. But the whole point of this is that you can't sit back and wait and hope that something's going to come your way because it's almost guaranteed that it won't. Sometimes it will. Sometimes you get lucky, right? But I would rather take ownership. I would rather set the goal and say, I want to make a move into marketing. I want to get into HR. I don't know how to get there yet, but I'm going to start reading books. I'm going to start reaching out to people who work in HR. I'm going to ask friends and colleagues for help because another thing I've learned along this journey of achieving lots of goals is that nobody can help you if they don't know what your goals are, right? And so you've got to be willing to be a little bit vulnerable and share that and say, hey, I work in customer service now, or I work in HR now. My dream is actually to get into marketing. I want to become a copywriter, whatever it is that you want to do, and start sharing that with people so they can share some ideas with you. Because chances are somebody knows somebody, but they wouldn't make that introduction if they don't know that's what you want to do. And just to tie it back all the way back to my story, I mentioned I worked in the insurance industry. I was very unhappy in my jobs. I sent an email one day to a casual friend named Adam Boggs, who I had met through school, but we didn't know each other that well. But I knew he had a background in sales, and I was interested in moving from product management that I worked in to get into sales because I thought maybe it's something I'd be good at. So I sent him an email out of the blue one day and said, I know you've worked in sales. I wonder if you have any advice for me. And his response absolutely changed my life because he said, well, I actually just started working at this consulting firm. I think you could be a good fit. Let's talk about it. And we got on the phone, and not only did he refer me in to get an interview with that firm, but he actually spent several hours helping me prepare for that interview because his reputation was on the line as well. And he wanted me to show up as, impressive and succeed. And so he absolutely helped me, but that email and his response absolutely changed my life. And all this only happened because I was willing to reach out and ask for help.
Mm. And I think one of the hardest things for people to do is to ask for that help. So if maybe somebody who's never got to ask, or somebody like myself, like I'll be honest, I'm a recovering I don't even know what's the word. I'm a recovering person who never asks for help. Like I
Yeah.
mean, it's bad. It's bad. Like
Yeah.
I took on so much on myself, but I didn't have to. Like I always say, like I did things the hard way. Don't do it my way. Like I hate asking for help.
Yeah.
It's like a sign of weakness for many years for me.
Right.
Don't ask me why.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people feel that way. And like, what is your advice to people who are like, listen, I don't know,
Yeah.
Andy, don't ask me to ask people for
It's
help.
so interesting. So many people hate asking for help. I have had a hard time with that in the past. I've realized that it was a little easier for me in the professional sphere for whatever reason, but in like my personal life, I had a hard time asking people for help. I think this is a problem often more for men than women, but plenty of women obviously struggle with this as
Yeah.
well, especially those who are more entrepreneurial. I think part of it is we don't want to be seen as weak. If we need help, that means that we can't figure things out for ourselves and someone might judge us as weak. The other big reason why a lot of people don't like to ask for help is because they don't want to be a bother to other people. They don't want to put other people out. I don't want someone else to have to go out of their way to do something for me. And so my response to that is to flip it around and ask yourself, how much do you like helping other people? Elena, how much do you like helping other people?
A lot, all the
Yeah.
time. Ask
I
me
love
anything.
I love helping other people. I ask 100 people this, 99 people out of 100 are going to raise their hand and say, I love helping other people. So what if by not asking people for help, you're actually denying them the benefit, the high they would get from helping you? Now, there's different levels of asking for help, right? Some things are a little bit, might put people out. If you ask somebody you barely know for a job at their company, they're like, wait a minute, I don't even heard you know you, right? That's too much. But asking somebody that you know pretty well, a friend, for a favor to help you, to make an introduction, to give you some advice, whatever, we love helping each other. And to deny that is denying someone an opportunity to feel good about themselves, right, for helping others. And so I've challenged myself to get better with that as well. The big challenge actually came about 5 years ago, right at the time I published my first book, I ended up being diagnosed with cancer, testicular cancer. And I was going through treatment. I did chemotherapy and I had a really hard time for a few months. And lots of people reached out because I was very lucky to not only have family, but lots of good friends and a big network. And lots of people reached out and offered to help me. And my gut reaction was to say, no, I got this. I can handle this on my own. But I challenged myself through that time to say, no, I'm going to say yes. When anybody wants to help me, I'm going to say yes. Because A, I could use the help. I'm in a tough, vulnerable situation here. And B, they're asking because they want to help. They're not just trying to be polite, right? They truly want to help. If one of my friends is sick and in trouble, I want to help them. That's what friends do, right? And so we want to be able to ask for help and also to give help, right? So just to finish on that, I try to make sure that I'm on a regular basis helping other people, being kind and offering favors and doing things for other people with absolutely no expectations that I'll get anything in return, right? We don't want to keep score on that. But I do find that the more I go out of my way to help other people, the more other people tend to want to help me as well. I'll call it karma or anything you want.
Mhm.
But that's kind of the way the world works.
Yeah, I totally relate. And when I was struggling with that, I remember my ex-boss, who then became a mentor and now a friend, many years ago, and she said the same thing. She was like, "You're denying people friendship, like basically, like when I didn't want to
Mm,
reach out for friendship, she's like that you're denying, like you're like basically that's not friendship if you can't
yeah,
ask for help. Like that's not, then you're not really friends with these people, right? Like,
right.
and then in the professional setting, a lot of times you might actually, well, one, like to your point, people like to help, but you might actually be a solution to something they're looking for, like especially if you have
Yeah.
an expertise in certain areas and so on. So it's yeah, it's a solid point, and I think a lot of people need to hear it, and I have to hear it over and over again. I mean, I struggle every single time
Yeah. It's
whenever I have
so
to ask.
interesting. One funny story on that. One time I
Mm.
was in the airport. I think I was traveling with my kids who were very little, and I was carrying like 5 bags, and I was clearly struggling and trying to cross this street at the airport or something. And this woman asked if she could help me. She said, "Hey, can I help you?" And I was like, "No, no." And she was like, "Please, I have nothing." It was like, "I have nothing else to do. My flight's not for 3 hours. I can totally help you." And I was like, "No, I got this." And I think about that all the time because I'm like, why? Why do I deny her? She probably would have felt great the rest of the day just for helping
Yeah.
me, handle some of my bags. But here I am, a man. I've got to, handle all
Yeah.
these bags myself. I don't need your help, struggling around it. But we all do that, right? And it's so strange.
Yeah. That's a good actionable point for people. Either ask for help, or if somebody asks to help you, accept it for
Yeah.
this week. I think that's like a good thing for
It's a
people
good
to
challenge.
try.
If somebody
It's a
offers
good
you
challenge,
help,
yeah.
and it's something that you could use help with, just say
Hmm.
yes. Don't think it's going to be putting them out because they're offering it. And then an additional challenge to go with that, going back to the conversation about strengths, if someone pays you a compliment, also say thank you and accept it. Don't do what we all do is like, oh, oh, Elena, you did a great job on that project. Well, I got lucky. My team did this, blah, blah, blah. And we try to make all these excuses why it had nothing to do with our own efforts, right? So next time someone compliments you, just say thank you. Next time someone offers you help, say, sure, I'll take that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really good challenge. So speaking of helping, I have quite a number of HR people and L&D professionals that listen to this and they say, listen, this is great and I can use this in my life, but how can I help my team? How can I help my
Mm,
organization take ownership in their careers? Because I think that's a big thing. At least that's what I experience sometimes. Is in
yeah.
software development, you work with a lot of really brilliant software
Mm,
developers. They're really really good at what they do. But for a lot of them, it's a lot of them are young. In this particular case, it's
mhm,
their first kind of that career job, right? And they were never really taught that in universities, right? Which is a whole
mm,
other conversation, another podcast. But
yeah.
they come into workplace and they don't really know where to start, and they often look to HR for some of that. So what
Mhm.
can HR do besides buy everybody your book, obviously?
Right. Yeah. First step, buy the book for everybody. Bring me in to speak, which is often what we do, right? So there are three pillars to successful career development. Number one is the organization providing the tools, the pathways, the platforms, et cetera, for people to be successful in their careers. Are there ways for people to learn, grow, upskill, whatever you want to call it? Are there ways for people to discover different roles and jobs in your organization, right? Are you providing that platform, that ability? Number two is managers or leaders providing that coaching and guidance. So are people getting that from their managers, or are they not having any coaching conversations, no career conversations going on? And number three is employees themselves actually taking ownership of their careers, getting clear on what they want to do and where they want to go, and being proactive and having those conversations. And what I've learned from working with lots of big companies that they're investing so much in leadership development, but not very much in career development, is that in any organization, you're going to have a certain percentage of managers who are really bad. They just don't care about their people at all, right? But that's a small percentage. Then there's a small percentage of managers or leaders who are just phenomenal. They just get it. They go out of their way to help their people. They know that it's really about enabling and empowering their people to succeed. They take their ego out of the way. But there's like a 80% in the middle. They're like, they want to help their people. They just don't know what their employees want, and
Mm-hmm.
they're really busy. So and if they don't have a promotion for them, they don't really have that career conversation. So this is an opportunity for employees to take that ownership and be more proactive and say, hey boss, we haven't talked about my career in a while. Could we sit down and have a conversation, just talk about where things are, where I could be going? I have some things that I'm thinking about. I wanted to get your feedback, your ideas on. And most managers or leaders are going to be like, oh, this is great. You're going to tell me, and then I can help you figure this out. Right. And so the way to make more of this happen, and by the way, this is huge for especially big companies with like 5,000, 10,000 plus employees, because you have people that are feeling stagnant in their careers right now, and they're not having that conversation with their manager. And so they're going on LinkedIn, they're taking calls from recruiters, and they leave and go somewhere else where they don't need to, right? You work in a large company, there's tons of opportunities right there, if they would just have that conversation. So the two main ways to go about it, or three main ways to go about it, is addressing those three pillars. One is HR, talent development, learning development, executive leadership, are you communicating this idea that, hey, we want you to own your career, we want you to have regular career conversations, you can go ahead and drive this, and your managers will support you. Number two is, are you creating that culture of leadership where managers are, instead of hoarding people and then focusing entirely on projects, but actually are thinking about, hey, how can I help my people grow in their careers, even if it's going to be moving on from working on my team, because it can't work for me forever. And I know that if I help them grow, then that's going to build my reputation, my personal brand as a manager, and more people will want to work for me. So are you creating that kind of culture? And then number three, are you encouraging people to take ownership of their careers? Now, you can do this internally. This is where it can help to have an external voice, and why a lot of companies do bring me in to speak, especially if you're
Mm-hmm.
having like a career week or a career month or a learning day. I'll often be doing the open keynote to talk about the importance of owning your career and making sure that you are investing time and learning in networking and development and building your brand. And then you can go have that conversation with your manager and start taking advantage of some of the resources the company is offering. So, it's got to be done somehow through communication channels in the company, or if you want extra help, someone like me can come in and have that conversation with people as well.
Mm, yeah, no, I think it's so important. I like it that there's not one responsible party, and I think that's important to point
No.
out because a lot of times we're like, oh, HR is not doing this, or my manager is
Yeah.
not doing this. But to your point, it's everybody. It's a whole system that really needs to, be on board with this. And yes, and sometimes you're going to be in an organization where the manager is not necessarily trained to be a people leader. They're also lost and confused, and not sure where their career is going. But this is where it goes back to you taking the ownership and then reaching out for that support, and making it easier for people to help you on your journey. And so, and I think a big part of that is, it really comes down to, especially for internal transitions and mobility, it really comes down to making sure that people know what you have to offer. And to me, it goes back to personal branding, right?
Hmm.
So, and I think personal branding is really got this, this kind of rap that it's about, oh, it's self promotion, or it's
Yeah.
only if you're trying to, if for the external stuff. But I can see how it can be useful in
Mhm.
internal organization. And I think that's where you cover quite nicely in your latest book, Own Your Brand, Own Your Career. So talk to me a little bit about branding in this context.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a chapter in my first book about personal brand. And then when my friend Mike Kim, who is a personal brand and marketing genius, asked me if I would do this book with him, I was just beyond excited about the opportunity because I see this as really trending and becoming more and more important in the corporate space. So your personal brand is essentially your reputation, right? It's what people think about you, what they say about you when you're not around. And the truth is, we're all making micro judgments about each other all the time. Every time you walk into a meeting and sit down with four other people, you're thinking to yourself, would I want to work with these people more? I mean, maybe I have to, but I love going to a meeting with Elena, or I hate going to meetings with John. He's so disrespectful. Whatever it may be, right? We have these little feelings, and these build up our reputation and our brand. And the thing is that we all have personal brands because of this. So my philosophy is we might as well be intentional about it, right? We might as well be thoughtful about the brand that we are portraying. And this is not about being fake. I'm all about authenticity. That's a big, big part of the book that we put out. A big part of what I do is building an authentic personal brand, but being intentional. And so that means thinking about what you want to be known for at your company, in the work you do, in your community, online. What are the things you want to be known for? Do you want to be known as an expert in something? Do you want to be known as hardworking? Do you want to be known as someone with high integrity, reliable? For me, I want to be known as helpful, generous, kind, inspiring, motivating, things like that that support me in the work that I do and my values, right? And then once you've spent time really thinking about what you want to be known for, you can start to ask yourself, are you showing up in alignment with that brand? You know, you said you want to be known as reliable, or I had a client tell me once that he wants to be known as the person who can get things done. So essentially, his bosses would know that he's the most reliable person around if they have a tough project. So if you want to be known as someone who can get things done or someone who's reliable, you can look back at your week on Friday and be like, you know what? Someone reached out to me for help and I actually acted like I didn't see their email because I didn't want to do the work, right? Is that really in alignment with my brand? People do this, right? Is that really
Yeah.
in alignment with my brand? Or I want to be known as helpful. Was I really helpful to people this week, or did I kind of keep to myself, right? So am I acting in
Mm,
alignment with my brand? And then the other thing that speaks to what you were asking about is that we live in an increasingly busy and crowded world, right? And many of us grew up understanding or being taught the myth that like you work hard, you put your head down, you stay humble, you stay quiet, and you'll be rewarded for the work you do. And the truth is, it's just not the way it works anymore, right? Because
mm,
it's not just about the work that you do or the quality of the work that you do. And you have to produce quality work as kind of the table stakes, right? But it's about who knows about the work that you do, right? If people don't know about it, then you can't really be recognized or rewarded for it. I had a conversation a few weeks ago with a good friend of mine who is a sales leader in a large technology company. He told me one of his biggest frustrations is that he has a lot of like quiet sales engineers on his team. And a couple of them, he's tried to get them promoted, and his bosses said, well, I can't promote them because I don't even know who they are, right? Basically, these people were
mm,
unknown in the organization because they hadn't taken time to build relationships and build their brand. So that means that you do have to do a little bit of work to make sure that people know about the work that you're doing, about your skills, about your accomplishments. Now, this is a balance. It's definitely an art because nobody likes someone who's going around bragging all the time. You're not doing it in a self-centered way, trying to make it all about you. You obviously want to be supporting other people, making it about the team and the organization, but just there are subtle ways to let people know about the work that you've done. Like, hey, we just completed this big, wanted to let you know we just completed this big project. The team put in a big effort. I did X, Y, Z, and I'm really proud of what we did. And I hope it's going to be valuable for the organization, you know, whatever it may be. But
mm.
finding ways to make sure people know about the work that you're doing. And hopefully you have an advocate, you know, whether it be your manager or a mentor or a sponsor or someone who can also stand up and speak on your behalf in good ways. But there's lots of little things too. Like, are you showing up with kindness? Are you collaborating with other people? Are you easy to work with? Are you respectful? Are you looking for ways to add value? We have a chapter in the new book about entrepreneurship, which is the idea of acting like an entrepreneur within an organization, which is to say that you look for problems to solve, you look for value to add that maybe is beyond what's defined in your role. You don't just say like, oh, well, that's not my job, so I'm not going to do it. You say, I'm going to look for any ways that I can add value to my boss, to my team, my organization, and treat this like it's my business, and find that that's usually going to add value to your brand and to the organization as well. So there's a lot of ways to think about it, but it's really going above and beyond to be intentional with what you're putting out there. Because to go back to what we talked about with ownership mindset, you can't control what other people think about you, but you can definitely influence it by how you're
Mm,
showing up and how you're treating others.
mm. You know what else comes to mind as you're speaking? Because I, again, like I work with a lot of software developers, and one thing that I kind of see where I don't want to say people less memorable, but it definitely makes a difference. And like it's a virtual environment completely. And it
Hmm.
makes a difference when somebody turns their camera on and they're
Hmm.
engaged versus when they just have a little, initials. And
Yep.
it's you can feel a difference in the interaction. And I wonder like how many people are probably missing out on just not turning their camera on and not building
Hmm.
that relationship and not being present, because you need to, what they say, you need to hear the name, see the face, right? Something like
Hmm.
that several times for people to
Yep.
really, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do a lot of outreach on LinkedIn because I'm running my own business and I'm trying to find clients to work with, right? And I know there's lots of ways I can add value that couldn't possibly be conveyed in a couple, short messages on LinkedIn. So my goal is always to get people on Zoom because
Mm-hmm.
I want them to see who I am, which is a
Yeah.
genuine human who cares about you and is not trying to just sell you whatever, but looking for ways to provide value. And I want to get to know you and see if we're a potential match to work with. I think we typically, historically people have worked in person together, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
in a unprecedented time where we're doing so much work remotely, which is fine, but we need to be able to see people. I do think it's important to put that camera on as much as you can or you feel comfortable. I know some people have issues with it from time to
Mm-hmm.
time. And just show up professionally. It doesn't mean you have to put a suit on. I'm wearing a t-shirt right now, but
Yeah.
we both have put effort into our backgrounds, the way we look, and because that all factors into your brand. And again, going back to what I said, people are making micro judgments all the time, and some people are not comfortable showing up on camera. But I find these days, 95%, it's rare that I come across someone that's just like, oh, I'm just not going to get on. Although I did speak to someone the other day who was a radio host and podcast host. She's going to have me on our podcast soon. We did a quick prep call on Zoom. She wasn't on camera, and I asked about it, and she said, "Oh, I've never been on camera. No one's ever seen my face online." I was like, "Okay, that's interesting."
Interesting.
So
Well,
you
that's a
all
brand
could
on
all
its own.
that's a brand on its own, right? You
Yeah.
always have the freedom to do things your way. That's what
Yeah.
owning your career and building your personal brand is all about. Just know that doing something like that may limit opportunities, whereas being willing to be out there and on camera and talking to more people might open you up to more opportunities. It might be uncomfortable for some people, but it
Mm-hmm.
might be something that you need to do from time to time.
Yeah, no, that's really really helpful, and yeah, and I think it's just to your point, I think when the world where we're just all so busy and there's so much information and so many things out there, especially with a lot of
Yeah.
the I'm sure fake stuff that's going to come out with AI and avatars and all that other stuff,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
think what's going to distinguish people is really other people knowing them for who they actually are.
100%. So we wrote a chapter in the new book of the seven human traits that will help you stand out in the age of AI. And I truly believe that as technology does more and more, it's the human skills, the human
Mm-hmm.
traits that are going to be more and more valuable. Things like EQ, understanding other people, relationship building, critical thinking, discernment, being able to have those conversations, storytelling becomes more and more important. And then when you think about the type of work that people are doing, I borrowed this theory from my friend Leanne Hughes, who has a great podcast called Leanne on Demand. And it is basically that there's three types of work or ways that we add value to others in organizations or anything else. One is manually, so with our hands or feet, right? You can think about manual labor or anything that we're doing kind of physically. Number two is with our knowledge, right? So most knowledge workers, think about lawyers, doctors, most of the work that we do, most of the people listening to this podcast do. And then the third way is with our personality and who we are, right? And historically, technology has disrupted that first layer, right? The manual jobs have always been disrupted by technology. But for the first time ever, we have a new technology, artificial intelligence, that's really more disrupting that middle layer, the knowledge sector, right? Because it has all the knowledge in the world, and it can replace a lot of lawyers and other knowledge type jobs, whereas it still can't clean my house, right? But what stands out that it can't really replace is who you are, right? Your personality, the things that you bring to the table. And that's where your personal brand comes in, right? Being known for something and be like, yeah, I really want to work with Elena because she brings these certain skills. She's really fun and great to work with. And I know she's going to add value to the team. And that's part of your brand. That's part of who you are. And that's just one of the key ways that we're going to need to stand out in this new age of AI.
Beautiful. Yeah, there's just so many gems here, and I really, really highly recommend that people read the book. And I'm gonna make sure it's linked in the show notes because I think like it's so practical, and that's what I want people to like. I really want people to walk away from these conversations like having practical things, but also understanding that it doesn't have to be super hard. It's just like there's small things that you can do to like really move your career forward, really experiment with the personal brand piece, and like see what works for you, where you feel most
Mhm.
comfortable. And I really found that your book's really, really, again, practical in this way. It's very just step by step, essentially. So I appreciate that. And if
Yeah.
somebody's listening to this and they want to reach out and maybe just follow your work a little bit more, where can they get in touch with you if they want to bring you into their company to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. So the books again, Own Your Career, Own Your Life, and Own Your Brand, Own Your Career, they're available on Amazon. I'm very active on LinkedIn if you want to find me there. And my website is andystorch.com. If you're really into building your brand, you're obviously going to get the book. And we also have a free digital workbook on our book website that has a lot of the questions, some that I mentioned, and many, many more, along with some LinkedIn templates and everything else. If you go to ownyourbrandbook.com, that's ownyourbrandbook.com. But really, you can Google me and find me. I have content all over the place because I'm trying to build my brand as well.
Beautiful. Andy, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure. I'm really, really grateful to have been able to chat with you. Thank you.
The feeling is mutual. Thank you, Elena.